Ladies and gentlemen, we have a real treat in store here on Sportzwire Radio, sportinarium.com/player, and somebody I've wanted to talk about for quite a while. He is arguably the heart and soul of the LWF. He's the guy you hear on those great calls, especially those calls where we saw Reynaldo, our top of the table, our reigning, defending LWF champion in the Fight Man for Christmas. It was his call, and you see him all the time behind the scenes. He is really the guy when it comes to the LWF, and the LWF has become one of our favorite subjects here on Sportswire Radio over the past several months because we speak with each and every Friday two of those wrestlers in the LWF. That is the Asset Stephen Cross and Wildfire Nate Reese. So I'm really excited to hear his side of the story. I'm always excited to speak with somebody else who's like us here with the mic in their hand. So without further ado, here on the Sports Report, the number one global sports show, our heart and soul of the LWF, commentator Michael Fitzgerald. My friend, how are you?
Thank you. I deserved that.
Well, I got to ask because we've had Ethan Edwards on the show in the past. We've had ALP on the show in the past. Now, they do this they used to do it each and every week. Certainly in the case of ALPs, he doesn't do it much anymore, but Ethan will do it from time to time. So compared to maybe how Ethan and ALP used to do it, how did mine hold up of your introduction?
Oh, that was the best introduction I've ever had. I wish I could record it and just play it before I enter a room. It's like, oh, is Mike coming? Yes, just 1 second. We got to play this video from Thomas. There we go.
You know, at this point, it's funny you said that because I do it, whether it's politicians at this point, which is God help us all, right? I'll do it for our college universities that come on, even our other athletes in the other sports. And everybody now, for the past 2.5 years, going on 3 years now, is now accustomed to me doing it, and it's almost like a request. Listen, Mikey, people don't want to listen to our entire segment. They just want to hear the intro. So we've accomplished something.
That's it. They've all gone now. They've all gone.
I'm glad that I have your ringing endorsement, and it is a tremendous honor to have you because when I think about the LWF over the past several months, your name has definitely come up here quite a bit on Sportswire Radio, obviously with Wildfire Nate Reese and the Acid Stephen Cross, and Davey Getsky's been on here, the Scenario Nathan Gunn, Gorgon's been on here, the Guiding Light Isaiah Quinn, and certainly, of course, our reigning defending LWF champion Reynaldo. But to have you on, you know the LWF better than anybody I could think of. So for those that are watching and listening to this that may not quite know the LWF, in your opinion, what does the LWF mean to you?
Well, the LWF, I've been part of it pretty much, I think I was on the first show. I was actually a referee on the first show. And then I'd always been wanting to get into commentary. I've been involved in wrestling now since about March 2008. So we're coming up to my... is it my 40? What year would this be? Is it
14? Yeah, time flies. 14, I know.
Yeah,
2008. 14, I was reminded the other day that 2008 wasn't that recent. I'm saying, wow, I was in college in 2008. I was just entering college, and yet here we are, and now it is like 14 years ago. So yeah, it's not so recent.
So when you say, because I always get confused with America, so high school is 14 to 18, and then it's college, right?
Yeah, so I had friends, to be fair, though, that were in high school until they were like almost 21. So yeah, generally it's supposed to be 14 to 18. But I have two friends that were in high school. One of them, it was so bad. I shouldn't say this, but he actually moved to England, ironically, years back. But he actually was in high school so long, they actually said, you can't come to school anymore. So, but generally it's supposed to be 14 to 18.
Yeah, because like in England, high school is 11 to 16.
Okay.
Then college is 16 to 18. Then 18 plus is university. So whenever Americans say college, I'm thinking, oh, when you were 16. It's like, no, I was 21. I'm like, oh, okay, there we go. I haven't got a clue. When people say, yeah, I was in the 5th grade, it's like, I haven't got a clue what the 5th grade is. I don't know what. Is that middle school? Is that primary? What is that, elementary school? I haven't got a clue.
Well, in my case, listen, they hoped I would just still have stayed in elementary school and middle school because it clearly looks like I haven't done much with any since. But obviously, it was a while ago. But obviously, go ahead on your time with the LWF and how it's all meant to you.
Well, the LWS, I'm lucky. I've been able to work for a lot of really good companies in the northwest of England and been able to call them home. I've been able to work for Future Shot Wrestling,
Sure.
For Grand Pro Wrestling,
Sure.
for the XWA, as it was called, in Morecambe. And now I'm Infinite Promotions in Liverpool. And now I call LWF home. We operate shows out of Chorley in Lancashire and Buckshaw. And it's a really, really nice company. I was invited to join. Steve Bibby, of course, runs the place.
Sure.
And he keeps me around and I do the commentary. I'd always wanted to get into commentary. I've been previously to that, I've been a wrestler. So I'd wrestled pretty semi-regularly started training about March 2008. And up until about the summer of 2012, I was wrestling kind of regular. And then I just physically, I just wasn't cut out for doing it, really. I think I reached a certain point where I was like, I've got, especially in Britain, the standard of wrestling was getting so good. And I was kind of a relic of a bygone age, really. So I'd been refereeing as well. And I kind of just segued into refereeing pretty much full time for about 6 years. And then I had some problems with asthma, unfortunately, which led to me stepping away from refereeing. And when I stepped away from refereeing, I thought that'd be me done in wrestling, really. I thought I'd be finished. Because the LWF brought me in, they brought me in as a referee to start. And then they got the offer, and then they just said, like, well, do you want to do commentary with Steve? And I was like, well, I'd always loved to do commentary. And I sat down with him, did a show with him, and instant chemistry really with Steve. We really, I think we have quite a nice sort of almost relaxed sort of feel sometimes when we're doing the commentary. It's nice. We like to banter back and forth. And I've been doing that now ever since. So this will be my 4th year in the LWF as a commentator. And I've sat at ringside and seen some incredible matches.
We've had some great matches here in the LWF, and more I get more excited about the LWF, and I think the hallmark of that was the Fight Man for Christmas, and we'll get into, obviously, this past weekend's event as well and talk about some other things, but you said a few things that were interesting, and I want to get into that because you were a wrestler. You were a wrestler for a while, and you were also a referee, and you're now a commentator. But what I find so interesting is that normally it's cut and dry, where somebody is just a commentator, they learned how to do it, they were a broadcaster. And then you have your quintessential wrestler turned announcer. Yet you actually did all those different things. You refereed, you've wrestled, and now you've commentated. How does your experiences shape you then as a commentator?
Well, I think one thing I do is, like, we don't make any secret on commentary that I did used to wrestle, or that I used to referee, in fact. And it gives me little things that I can say when someone puts a hold on. I actually know what the hold feels like, which helps, explaining sort of like psychology and things like that. And I can always sympathize with the referees when they've got something going on. I'm that commentator who's always defending the referee, going, "Oh no, they've got a difficult job," because I've done it. And when you're a referee, it's very easy for people to make you look stupid. And I've been made to look stupid. Well, and it's ridiculous as well, because whenever a wrestler makes a referee look stupid, they're only hurting themselves, because all the heat goes on me. You're supposed to be the bad guy. They're supposed to hate you. But if you're making me look stupid, they're just going to hate me, and all your heat dissipates. And sometimes people just didn't realize that, and it's just like some of the terrible finishes that have been done where I've just been made to look like an absolute goof, and I'm like going like, "Are you sure you want to do that?" Because they're probably not. That's not gonna help. That's not gonna help you. I'm like, no, and I do it, and they're all booing me. I'm like, you see, they're all booing me now. I'm the biggest heel on the show, and all I'm doing is trying to do my job. So yeah, I think but I've done other stuff as well. I've been a manager. I've been a heel authority figure. I've been the guy who pressed play on the music. I've done pretty much every.
I think that's the coolest job, by the way. The guy that actually presses the button.
It's a horrible job. It's so stressful.
Why is it so stressful? Tell me why.
Because if you get it wrong, if you get it wrong, dearie me. Like, there was a guy who, I won't name him, but in Future Shock, he used to always get the music wrong. Always, like, you'd give him like he'd start playing the wrong song, and he'd turn you and just go, "Sorry," and it's like, stop the music and play the right one. It's like, no, you're not going to do that, are you? Right, I'm just going to enter the wrong music. Here we go. It's just like, I hate that. That is the one, like, where it's like, because all through the show you're thinking, I'm going to press the wrong music, I'm going to play the music at the wrong time. I'm going to give this to be a run-in that no one's supposed to know about, but now they're going to know because I'm going to play the music by accident. It's just, it's a horrific job. my respect to we ever get Martin does it for us at the LWF, and I have utmost respect for him for doing that because it's a job, it's a responsibility I don't want. I have basically done, because the one job I'd never done was ring announcing. I ended up doing that a couple of years ago, and that's hard. Ring announcing is hard. Like, you don't realize like how much it's going to just destroy your vocal cords.
It's funny you said that. It's fun because when I had Ethan on, and Ethan, as you know, has done the ring introductions, and Ethan said you had to pace yourself, even to do that long intro like I just did. You really had to pace yourself, and you think it's okay. You're not speaking long, but even like those 2 minutes where you do those really, really pounding introductions, and then you do it. Let's say there's 7 matches on a card or 6 matches. You have to do that. Let's say it could be 15 times if it's a tag team match or it's a triple threat match. You could be doing that 15 times over. I mean, so yeah, it does pound your vocals a little bit. It really could hurt.
I did not expect it because because I did it at the last minute. Really, it was a show Steve was doing. It wasn't an LWF show. It was actually this. You'll laugh at this. The show was. He had actually, someone had rented out the LWF roster to do a birthday party at the Buckshaw Community Centre. So there was about 50 kids there all watching this show. And Steve just messaged me. I was at the football, actually. I was watching Everton play. And he just messaged me during the game and said, like, can you come to the Buckshaw Community Centre and be the ring announcer? And I went like, well, I guess I can. So I show up in my football kit and then just go like, right, okay, what am I doing then? Right. And then just becoming a ring announcer. And like by the end of the night, I couldn't talk anymore. I was just like, I did not pace myself at all. And I was just like, it was like, it gave me a new respect for people who do that job. Because to be honest, it's the one job it was one of the jobs where like, I never wanted to do it, or I never had dreams of being a ring announcer. You know, I had dreams of being a wrestler. I had dreams of doing commentary and stuff like that. Maybe being a backstage interviewer. I never wanted to be a ring announcer. When I did it, I was just like, wow, this is difficult. If they ever ask me to do this again, I'm gonna have to, have some lemon tea before I go out there. Put a bit of honey in there.
Well, I could see then we're not going to see you doing ring introductions anytime soon. So we've got that clear. There's no question that Mr. Bibby, I'm sure you're listening to this. We don't want Mikey on ring introductions. You might have to
give me some advance notice. Don't call me in the afternoon.
We'll get Simon Hill, another old friend of ours. We'll get Simon Hill to do it because we know Simon has done some stuff here and there with the LWF. So you got an accomplished background there. And obviously we'll get back to some of that here in a little while. But what's really caught my attention of the LWF over the past 4 or 5 months, and Nate and Cross, we'll get to them for sure because I want to get your opinions on them, especially Nate, because Nate was involved in a little something here this past weekend. But what has really impressed me about the LWF over time is that you guys have a nice little knack of wrestlers, that they're versatile. You have different wrestlers that do different things, and you almost in a sense put your spin on things of some wrestling stuff of yesteryear. That's another clue of also some stuff that we'll get upon to make all this work and the LWF's momentum that it has gained over the past few months. How have you guys been able to do that?
Well, I think it helps that we've got a nice, loyal fan base who keep coming to the shows. It helps that having a gentleman like yourself who lives in America, for some reason, you're a big fan of the LWF, and we're very, very grateful to have you. It's great. I mean, like, because I do that all the time as well with companies like in America. Like, I've got big into. I don't know where exactly do you live?
I'm in New York, believe it or not.
So you've heard of Catalyst Wrestling, then, I imagine.
Yes, I have. Yes.
Yeah, so I became aware of them randomly. They had a show on the Fight Network here in the UK.
Sure.
So I discovered them recently, and I loved discovering. And I love them. I think they're a really good show.
I work with a company you might have heard of. You mentioned Fight TV. Called Pro Wrestling Magic. They used to be on Fight TV before they switched off Magic. To
Yeah, I don't know them.
The guy, well, Cody Rhodes actually wrestled in it. The guy that runs it is a guy named Steve Off. Well, he was one of the champions there, and the tag team champions there were actually trained by the Dudleys in the 3D Academy, and
cool.
Their world champion, or current world champion, is actually a woman. So they have a little bit of a fun, but
that's cool. A bit like Chikara then.
Yeah, they're a little bit goofy, though. I actually prefer the LWF and Odyssey Pro Wrestling and you guys over them, and we'll get into that, I'm sure, another time. But yeah, we're similar in that sense that we had found what companies through different ways.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like for me, like I remember seeing what got me interested in it's because what makes me feel old is like you see Colby Carino and he's like a full-time wrestler now, and like my one of the early I used to watch his dad all the time.
Sure.
In ECW, and I was
I know him very well.
And the fact that his son is now a full-time wrestler and as good as he is just makes me feel so old. And I saw what got me into Catalyst was I saw him wrestling Homicide. I was like, bloody hell, Homicide and the Carinos, they will just not get on, will they? So I love stuff like that, and I think we kind of have that. What helps us as well is we do have ongoing storylines. We have characters that I think connect with people. We have good wrestling, and we have ongoing storylines that you want to keep abreast of and see what's going on. Reynaldo's quest to become the LWF champion, that was like 6 months in the making. And we've got all sorts of other storylines going on. You mentioned Nate Reese. We started a big one with him and Bob Costin, which I'm sure is going to rage on for months. I think that helps us a lot. I think it really pleased me to see how many people were there for the show. We had a show on Saturday, the 8th of January, called Winter of Discontent, where we crowned our first tag team champions. And going in, I remember speaking to Steve, and because we only the pre-sales, there wasn't a ton of pre-sales for it because obviously we've got a plague going on. The Backstreet Boys.
Well, that was funny you said that because
that's
we had
difficult.
Nate on from the Fightmare for Christmas to the Winter of Discontent, and we didn't know. I'm like, should I promote the event, the date, and such? And Nate was like, we didn't know. We promoted it obviously this past Friday because Nate was on the show. We'll get into Nate for sure, but we didn't know how to promote this. That's why, because of everything with Omicron and COVID, we didn't know.
Well, you got no idea, do you? I mean, we had a bunch of dropouts on the show. Steve's messaging me because we've had people who had to drop out because of it. I think one thing I will say is I think fans understand that you're going to have replacements. I think Pro Wrestling Eve had a show at the weekend. They only had 11 wrestlers when all was said and done because of this. It's like I say, it's as long as the Backstreet Boys reunion tour is going on, this is going to happen. But we had a really good walk up. And I was very happy. It was pretty much full as far as I could see. And they were into the show and they liked it and they got into the storylines.
You got some great ones. You got some great storylines right now, and I think at the top of that is a guy that has become, surprisingly or not surprisingly, a big fan of us, and that is obviously your reigning, defending LWF champion, the top of the table, Reynaldo. Now you know Reynaldo. I know a long time because of Pro Wrestling. He was the world champion there.
He was
a few moons ago. But you have a champion in Reynaldo, and he has such a following, such a fan base. He's got the 12th man. The crowd is so behind him. I mean, you guys couldn't have right now, in my opinion, a better world champion to promote this company and somebody that can continue to build off what you guys have laid the foundations for. I mean, talk to me about Reynaldo because you know him a long time. Talk to me about what makes him our standard bearer here as our LWF world champion.
I mean, I totally agree. I think Ray's a very good wrestler, but I think more importantly than that, Ray is just someone who it's so easy to root for. I think if you know Ray, I've been lucky enough to know Ray for like 14 years. He's just a solid gold human being. There's not much else you can say about him, really. He's just genuinely a really good guy, and it really comes across. And I think whenever people see him in the ring, I think people, when he's hurt, they feel sympathy for him. When he's on the up, they get behind him and they cheer for him. I think it's just he just has an ability to connect with a crowd. And to be fair, he's always had that, really. The first time I saw Ray in a show, because I used to watch Future Shot Wrestling as a fan before I finally went to the training school. Ray was just starting to get cooking. I think 2006 was his debut. I think he was in a battle royal and stuff like that. But then from 2007 onwards, they started, pushing him and putting him in some storylines and feuds and stuff like that. And you could just tell that like he was making a connection with the fans, and the fans were getting into him, and the fans liked him. And his route to the Future Shot title was just a natural progression of just people liked him, they wanted him to succeed, and it was just the same in the LWF. From the very first show, they've been behind him. They've been into Ray. They like Ray, and he's just excellent at just being a babyface. Really, he's great. It's just I think people who come in to work in the LWF, obviously some people who actually don't even know Ray, they leave the show just being so impressed at the sort of reactions he gets, and I really enjoy Ray's wrestling as well. I really enjoy watching him wrestle, and he's just got he's got a charisma to him. He's got that everyman appeal. I think we all have a friend like Ray. I guess we all have someone like that who he's just a good bloke, and I think that comes across. And I think it's great to have a babyface on top like that. I think there's this whole sort of thing, isn't there, where it's like, oh, every company in the world's got to have a bad guy on top, and everyone's got to chase. It's like, I grew up watching Stone Cold Steve Austin and on top, and I just wanted him to win every week. I did, that's fine. Ever since going back, you're from New York, obviously Bruno Sammartino. How long was he champion? 8 years. 8
years. I think it was 8.
63. Bob 63 to 71. They got a nasty guy in. Bruno beat him up. Everyone loved it. That's
and
great.
Another run after that. So and listen, Bob Backlund was champion for 5.5 years. The first Hulk Hogan run was just about 4 years. People like champions for a long time that are good guys.
Well, I mean, it's why WWE is so strange today, because they've moved totally away from that. They were always a babyfaces over company. You look at you got Bruno, you got Pedro, you've got Bob Backlund, you got Bruno again, you got Hogan. That's like Savage had his run, Warrior had his run, Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels.
Well, Diesel was champion for a year. They made Diesel a good guy.
Yeah.
He was champion for a year. He actually has the longest title reign of anybody in the 90s. Believe it or not, it was Diesel to this day. He was
and he was supposed when he won it, they told him he was going to have it for 3 years at least. That was the plan. They were going to have a long reign with him.
Kevin Nash would have been, and I'm a Kevin Nash fan. I had a Kevin Nash shirt on last week when I spoke with Reynaldo. I'm sure you saw. But if Kevin Nash would have been champion for 3 years, I don't think we'd be talking about WWE right now.
Well, it wasn't. Well, yeah, I think they're mitigating. I'm not a huge Kevin Nash fan, but I think he got given. He wasn't given the best start, I think, as champion. Someone showed me that interview did where they put the Christmas hat on him, and it's just like, you were cool last week. What happened to you? But they did that with Roman Reigns too, didn't they? They just like to make their.
Well, how about CM Punk's early runs as champion? It was like they booked him as like he wasn't winning, but then they made him as a bad guy, and he had that great run as the 1 year champion, and then it was like he off to the races.
It's like in WWE now, if you want to be a big time good guy, you've got to be a bad guy for a couple of years first, because they're excellent at getting these bad guys and making them into these dominant characters who you think are cool, but it's just they can't do it on the other side sometimes. It's really frustrating. I don't really watch WWE anymore now, to be perfectly honest. I'm kind of more into AEW these days than I am WWE, which has probably turned half the audience against me just like that. But there you go.
You know what? Believe it or not, and we'll get into some more of the LWF for sure, but I kind of feel the same way, although I am looking forward to Raw tonight. I am kind of excited that Brock won the championship, because I really wasn't impressed with Big E as champion. It was kind of like going through the motions, but I do feel like WWE, like Roman's been champion, and it's like there's nobody that's really been believable to beat him for the championship, and it's like,
because he's great. Roman Reigns is fantastic. It's just there's just no one else on his level. That's the problem. There's Drew and Bobby Lashley.
You know why that is? Because on SmackDown, there's really nobody at his level. The one guy that could be is Drew McIntyre, and everybody wants him out of the title picture. So every good person that could win a championship is on Raw, whereas on SmackDown, it's really Roman and everybody else. I mean, so in a sense, you're almost a casualty of war, or a victim of your own circumstances. So in that sense, I mean, that's kind of why AEW, though, it's like I look at AEW, and we'll get into it for sure. It's almost like ECW with more of a mainstream feel to it. It's like I've always made the comparison that AEW is like ECW mixed with like an 80s rock show, because you got the fire, you got the music, you got the adrenaline, and then you got those spots in different points of a match or different wrestlers. There's that cool feel to it. Where WWE, doesn't have that cool feel right now. They've had it at times, but they don't have it right now because also everybody checks the internet and they hear, oh, this wrestler got released and that wrestler got released. And, when we were growing, because you talked about Stone Cold, right? If you're in your early to mid 30s, that's your time, was the Attitude Era into Ruthless Aggression. That was our time of growing up. WWE was a very good company. Now, you have people that are all, remember, there was no Twitter then. There was no Facebook. There was no Instagram. Everybody has that. Everybody's armchair quarterbacks. And WWE, again, is a victim of the fact that there was no competition up until AEW. So people gravitate to it, I think.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much wrestling on now as well. Like I was talking to someone, they were telling me about how good Impact Wrestling is at the moment. And whenever I've seen clips of it recently, it does look good, but it's just not enough hours in the day. There's just so much good wrestling. It's like, you can imagine like going back to 1998 versions of us and saying, oh yeah, with a click of a button, you can watch about 20 different wrestling companies whenever you want at any time. All you need is an internet connection. You'd be like, first of all, you'd say, what's an internet? Secondly, you'd be like, what is this paradise you're talking about? But it's amazing. Like you can watch Pro Wrestling Noah, you can watch New Japan, you can watch Stardom, you can watch WWE, you can watch AEW, MLW, Catalyst. Until recently, you could watch Ring of Honor, GCW. They're big in your area, I believe. They're doing shows in New York and that sort of stuff. Like, I mean, I keep meaning to watch GCW. Never get a chance. There's just so much wrestling on. It's great.
We also have lives. When we were 13 years old in 2000, we didn't have lives. We could sit there all day and sit on our couch or go in our backyards and reenact wrestling moves. I mean, so
I remember getting video cassettes, which probably some of the listenership won't even know what a video cassette is, like a VHS.
You know how I got? I'm going to spoil it, but I actually got into ECW fully was when I was a kid. There was a friend of mine. I took drama, then I took music, and he had all the ECW's tapes on VHS going back from like 1995, 96.
Oh, awesome.
So I really got into ECW through VHSs. He would burn these tapes, and I would give him $5, whatever I could afford, whatever my allowance was, or whatever money I scrounged from, like shoveling snow, whatever it was. I would use that money to buy ECW tapes, and I got into like the Sandman, Sabu, Rob Van Dam, the real Taz, not the watered down Taz you see now or in WWE. So I really got into ECW. Then I discovered, and I said this with Reynaldo on Wednesday's show when he was here, there is a station here called Madison Square Garden Network, and they used to replay ECW at like 1 o'clock in the morning. So what we used to have here Saturday nights was we'd have WCW Saturday night, 6 o'clock. We would then have, I would strain myself enough. We'd have WWF, either Shotgun Saturday night or Jack
Saturday night
at 11 o'clock.
Shotgun Saturday night, which they used to film in New York at points. Didn't they film it like in New York?
Yeah, at the beginning of it.
Clubs and stuff.
They did. I think it was actually one of them, believe it or not, they filmed in the Manhattan Mall, if I recall correctly. A few of them they actually filmed.
They filmed like there's one where I think he's in the train station and Triple H gets knocked down down an escalator and he's going down.
That's the Manhattan Mall, because the Manhattan Mall goes into Herald Square, 34th Street. So that was that. But you'd stay up, and then ECW would come on, or it was on Channel 11 at one point. So that was, you grew up and you would try to watch 4 or 5 hours of different wrestling. You wouldn't get many good matches, but like that's what you got. And that's how you found out different things. Like you said, VHSs. I mean, I would watch these cloudy tapes that this guy
grainy as anything.
Yeah, and it would
CRT TV.
Yep. And you just try to I would squint my eyes to just watch these wrestlers, the point was that it was a whole new world. It was almost like I described it like if you were a music fan, you would go to a music store and you would like kind of like sort through like whether it was a CD or a cassette if they had them, and you'd find a band that had a cool logo, and that's what ECW was. And AEW right now has that success because now there are people from the ages of 15 to 40. Where in our age, toward the end of that, maybe 30 to 35, are looking at it like, wow, well, WWE has abandoned us because they're a corporate or whatever they are. They don't dare have their own network and Peacock, and they can just do their own thing, and we might be looking for that alternative. And I think those are reasons why we're also looking for the LWF, and we want to make sure everybody follows the LWF here on Twitter at LWF The, Instagram at the LWF Wrestling. Also, please like the Facebook page at LWF. Also, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube page, which has almost 450 subscribers. And one of those reasons why we're extremely excited to be speaking about all things related here to the LWF is one of the guys who's the heart and soul of the LWF. That is commentator Michael Fitzgerald, and I am the host of the Sports Report and the station manager here at Sportswire Radio, the Reverend Tom Bryce. And if you like what you hear from Sportswire Radio, please give us a follow on Facebook at Sportswire Radio. And 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, you can listen to all of our many shows. And we have about, I think, a dozen now that are in wrestling at sportnarium.com/player. So please make sure you also now subscribe to our YouTube page as well at Sportswire Radio. So we are definitely working hard. We are trying to get all our outlets out there. We are talking all things related here to the LWF with, of course, commentator and the heart and soul of the LWF. That is Michael Fitzgerald. And Mikey, I have a request actually for you, because there is somebody watching this here on my Facebook stream, because we're on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and sportnarium.com/player. And they've requested that you talk about apparently the new LWF Tag Team Champions, and they are called the Wrecking Crew. I'm sure you've heard of them.
Oh, yes, I have heard of them. Yeah. So for those who weren't aware, we had to make some changes to the tournament. CBB had to make some changes. We were due to events out of our control. And what ended up happening is this tournament went. It was going to come down. The semi-finals came down to the Merseyside Mercenary Squad against Synergy, and then the Wrecking Crew against Shining Wizard, Big Ron, and Clash.
Yep.
And what happened is Merseyside Mercenary Squad and Synergy fought to a double count-out, which meant that the semi-final then became the final. And the Wrecking Crew ended up picking up a win. Chris Stone, David Getsky ended up winning the titles thanks to help from fellow Wrecking Crew member Nick Cotter. And then at which point the Mercs came out, Merseyside Mercenary Squad, and we all got excited thinking they were going to fight one another. The Wrecking Crew and the Mercs, that's going to be awesome. Wow, that'd be so cool. And then it turns out that no, the Wrecking Crew hired the Mercs to make sure to take Synergy out the tournament. So there you go. So that's going to be, we'll see what happens from there, because Wrecking Crew making friends with the tag team division, it seems, because they also jumped the Blazing Guns, Conrad Blaze and Nathan Gunn, before that.
Well, they have a history as certainly Mr. Getsky and Mr. Gunn, because we've actually had them both on the show, and certainly Mr. Getsky and Mr. Gunn. They have a long-standing rivalry.
They do. They're constantly at each other's throats. So now, I had a message earlier today from Nathan Gunn, and he's not happy. He is not happy at all. So keep your eyes on that one. There's all sorts going on in that tag team division. It's going to be bedlam. So you're going to want to keep your eye on that. I actually, the tournament ended up being like I could say it didn't go as planned because of people not being able to be there, and there's nothing you can do about that. It's going to happen in this current climate.
Sure.
But I think in the end we got, I think the Wrecking Crew, obviously, whether you like their tactics or not, very deserving champions. And I'm really excited now seeing what's going to happen with it. I think, Synergy going to want title shots. Eventually we're going to try and get the models in. So I'm sure they're going to want title shots. There's the Blazing Guns. There's Shining Wizard. There's the Mercs. We've got a really good tag team scene. So I'm really looking forward to it. And Bob Costa and Nate Reese could have been a long-term tag team if
I'll get to them, but I want to spend some time for a few minutes on the Wrecking Crew, because we've had Nick Cutter on the show here in the past, and Davey Getsky we've had on a couple times. So we're very familiar with the Wrecking Crew. Now that the Wrecking Crew have gold, do you think, in your opinion, that the Wrecking Crew have redeemed themselves from their failures from the Fightmare for Christmas? Because now you could make the case that they might be more dangerous because they've got the gold. And certainly Reynaldo is going to remain in the crosshairs for sure of the Wrecking Crew, along with the rest of the roster. So is it safe to say that you think that the Wrecking Crew right now might be more dangerous than they were going into the Fightmare for Christmas?
Well, I think they need to bounce back following what happened at Fightmare. And now, obviously, Getsky and Stone have got their own issues to worry about. And I'm sure that Nick Cutter's going to want to get back in the LWF title hunt. There's a lot of people who are going to want to be. I mean, Jack Roberts had a very game effort against Reynaldo, so who knows? He might be looking back to get back in the title hunt. We've got Lachlan Sharp when he's back, J-Mac, John McKinney. We've got a lot of really talented guys. The asset, Steve Cross. So there's lots of people I think who are going to want to be, in the title hunt, so to speak. Nick Cutter will definitely be one of them. I'm sure he will be. And Nick Cutter, to his credit, is really, really good in the ring. Really good bad guy. I think it's funny when he became a bad guy. I was like, because in my head I was just like, really, Nick? but because
I think Reynaldo felt that same way when certainly Mr. Cutter used his actions toward Reynaldo. So
he's really good at it. He's got a really good little sneer on him. Yeah, he's good. I was like, and he's growing into it as well. And I think one thing about Nicky, he gets more comfortable every time he's doing it. I think he's Davey and Chris, their career bad guys, basically up to this point anyway. Nick came from the other side of the tracks, so I was really surprised when it happened, because he really wanted to do it. He was all for it. He was like, I want to be a bad guy, and let's face it, being a bad guy, being a bad guy is fun. There's no denying that being a bad guy is fun. And he's really grown into the role, and he's really, really good at it. And I think him and Ray, I really enjoyed that match they had. I thought the match at Fightmare was really good, really intense. They were right in front of us at one point. That was fun. Went through our table. Really good, intense fight. And I think Nick's looked good every time he's been out. I think he was when we came back with the Castle Cup. And I thought he had two very good matches in that. I thought his match with Chris Stone was very good. I thought his match with Jack Roberts was good. I enjoyed his match with Keenan Krishna. I thought that was an excellent match as well. So and Joey Hayes had a great one with Joey Hayes. That was at V for Vengeance, which I believe is available on. I believe most of these shows are available on Powered 4 TV, as well as Mosh Pit Mayhem, which is free if you want to go. I believe if you go onto Powered 4 TV, and that's, to this day, one of the craziest matches I've ever called or ever been in person for. It was insane. Talk about ECW. That was a ECW style brawl. I'm so looking forward to this now, to see with the Wrecking Crew, with Davey and Chris. There's so many interesting matches they can have. And the fans absolutely hate them, and it's brilliant. So I can't wait. I can't wait to see them get in there with Synergy, get in there with Wizard again, get in there with like the Blazing Guns, get in there with the Models, possibly get in there with the Mercs, any other teams we can find to bring in there. I'm up for it. I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, absolutely. No question that the tag division here is really red hot in the LWF. And it was only a matter of time that you guys were going to have tag team championships. And congratulations to the Wrecking Crew for winning those tag team champions. They were our first tag team champions here in the LWF. Yeah. So no matter what you think of the Wrecking Crew, they are a part of history. So at the end of the day, the Wrecking Crew did do something that nobody can take away from them. So at the end of the day, no matter what happened with Mr. Cutter and Reynaldo, Getsky and Stone certainly made some history, and I have a feeling that they're going to hang on to those belts for a little while. So I'm very excited to see what happens with them. But there was a wrestler, you kind of alluded to it, in Wildfire Nate Reese, that he certainly was a part of the tag team tournament this past weekend. And Wildfire Nate Reese, we've spoke about him with different wrestlers and other different people, and I kind of felt that before what happened with him this weekend, he kind of maybe lost footing or didn't have his footing in the LWF. We saw him do some things that for a guy who's a 15-year plus veteran, you kind of scratched your head a little bit. He was giving out the raffles, and he had to do an open challenge, and he had Beladius answer it, and he basically beat him into a bloody pulp. And he had his thing where he did make the save for Bob Costin. But I have to ask you now, has Wildfire Nate Reese potentially maybe gotten his mojo back this weekend?
I think Nate's been really good since they started, actually. I mean, I've known Nate for a very, very long time. You talk about tag team champions. I think he was either the first or second Future Shock tag team champion with Dirt Feelgood. I think they were the second team to hold those belts. And that was back in like 2008, 2009, I think. So, he's got history of tag team competition. I believe he was also in GPW in a tag team as well. So, yep. So yeah, I mean, I've known him. I've actually I had a big feud with Nate Reese back in the day. I think it was 2010. I think we had a big feud back in the day, and he finally put the beating to me eventually. But I think this has really rejuvenated him. Actually, I think he's been really good, really good. Like it, I remember because I was there in the ring when he made his big sort of like return. I ended up having to do the raffle. And the most morose raffle. I think Steve said himself, this is the most depressing raffle I've ever seen.
That was very goofy.
He was so good. He was so good though. Like, there's a bit in that where if you watch it, there's a bit where like I think
watched it. He sent me the video. We broke it down. We actually recapped the Nate Reese raffle.
Yeah, the bit where he tries to sign the chair and the pen doesn't work. And
yes.
You see me just bury my head in the corner because it's like I cannot laugh right now because it wasn't supposed to be like I don't want to be laughing at him. I'm supposed to be, feeling sorry for him and stuff. It's kind of like, Nate, we're kind of doing a raffle here. But he was so good. And then, like, the stuff with Belatius, that was good as well. That was really good. Like, I think he's really risen to the occasion, actually. And I felt everything I really like Bob as well. I like Bob. Such a humble guy. And he's always so nervous before a show. He's always so nervous because, like, he's just a very, very modest guy. I think he's like, I think he just needs to just believe in himself a little bit more because when he gets in the ring, he's really good. Like, I remember seeing him because, like, his previous appearance in the LWF, he was supposed to be in the Lancashire Riot a few years back, and he got beaten up before he could get in the ring, and that was all he was there for. He came there just to do that, and he was so good at that I was like, I like him. I'd like to see him again. And then I saw him wrestle. I think Jack Roberts. He wrestled Jack Roberts in July, and he was like, I was like, whoa, he's really good on the mat. Bob Costin's got some skills. I like him, and he's continuing to get better and get better. And I love the fact that he's become like the sneaky roll up guy. Like he can catch a guy with a roll up at any time. I love that. That's sort of, I love it when Zack Sabre Jr. does that. That stuff's like, Yoshinari Ogawa, that sort of thing. That stuff's like catnip to me. I love it. So like, honestly, I was shocked to see because again, I thought that Bob Costin and Nate Reese could have been a long running tag team.
So did I. I actually thought that, especially
they look good. They look good, especially because against the Mercs. They were against the Merseyside Mercenary Squad, who are much more experienced teaming together.
So listen, Evans, woo.
And they did really well. They held their own, and there's no shame in losing. And I thought it looked good, but I think now the feud between them, there's got to be, because Bob Costin's not going to take that line down. Nate Reese beat him up afterwards, blamed him for the loss. I'm sure Bob Costin will be back from that, and I'm sure we'll see more of both of them going forwards. But yeah, I think Nate Reese has been great. I think he's been really good. He's been really good. I really am happy to see it for you, actually, because I think he might have had periods in his career where he thought, maybe I'm done. Maybe I've hit my the end of the road, and he's rejuvenated himself. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens now, where they go with that. I'm looking forward to it.
So am I, and I am happy to see that, obviously, personally, because we've gotten to know him. We speak with him each and every week, I'd say for the past 7 or 8 months. So he's definitely become ingrained here on the Sportswire team and the Sportswire family for sure. But, I look at Nate, and he can bring a lot to the roster, to the locker room. We've seen Reynaldo's huge comeback, and we've posed that question. Well, why not Nate Reese? Because we've seen Reynaldo, and Reynaldo was gone from the professional wrestling scene for a while. Nate has soldiered on. Nate continued. He trudged along, and he kept going. Whereas, again, Reynaldo basically walked into the main event. He walked into being a world champion. I mean, so in a sense, maybe you see Nate Reese use the motivation of somebody that he called a colleague and somebody he knows very well in Reynaldo. Maybe his motivation that he can get back there. If Reynaldo can do it, maybe Wildfire Nate Reese can do it. Do you think that that's something that you may foresee as well?
Well, I think Nate Reese has got to deal with Bob Costin before he can think about anything else. Bob Costin's going to be laser focused on him now going forward. I think he'll be. I mean, I'm interested to see what a match between them would be like I am interested to see it because we saw like I loved a little bit of just at the start of the match last on Saturday. Dan Evans, who I love as well, and is my former tag team partner, Dan Evans. Him and Nate did some lovely little.
And they've been in the ring together too, by the way. I would also add Dan and Nate have definitely did a few dances.
They have. Dan was my backup when I was feuding with Nate back in the day. So yeah, like I think as well. It's like what I like about the whole Nate Reese sort of Bob Costin thing is that like Nate Reese was trying so hard to be loved by the fans. Like his whole sort of thing is that he tries too hard. Whereas Bob Costin's just himself, and they love him for being himself. And I think it's wrestling is kind of like the ultimate. I've heard this before. It's the ultimate morality play, and it kind of that kind of is. It's like Bob Costin is like just being himself, and people like him for it. Whereas Nate Reese is trying too hard, and people were gagging on it. And I just think, yeah, that's good. It's a good lesson for life, I think. And now we can see good and evil battle, and it should be great.
Oh, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be very interesting because Nate can go in the ring, and Bob Costin is a guy that can definitely go in his own right. I mean, this is going to be a very, very intriguing match here. So I don't think Nate's going to need open challenges anymore because I think Mr. Costin is going to definitely want some payback. Yeah. And I did want to ask you about a team that certainly with the Guiding Light Isaiah Quinn is a big part of, and the Guiding Light Isaiah Quinn now is looking to go into what I do, obviously, at Sportzwire Radio, so I want to give him a huge shout out, and obviously he's a big part of the worst tag team, which in some ways I think might be the best tag team, and sort of how they're able to get reactions, or maybe reactions not everybody might be happy about, but you have to talk to me about the worst tag team, especially Gorgon. We had Gorgon on here, the meanest luchador of Manchester. I mean, such a fascinating team here and with the Guiding Light Isaiah Quinn. So give me your perceptions of the worst tag team.
I really like I like all three of them, actually. I like all three of them. It's it's one of it just shows you really how stacked the roster is, that we've got like, the worst are really talented, really entertaining. Isaiah Quinn's just great. Like his ability, not just the actual, when it's not just his management and things like that, but his ability when it comes to production and putting things together. Like those videos he makes are just so good, and I really, really like him. And he scared me actually on the show because Isaiah Quinn had to step away from wrestling due to some injuries. We know. We've had him on quite a bit. Yep. And he ended up taking a couple of bumps at the show on Saturday. And I was on commentary. Before you hear it, I'm like, ah! I was like, oh no, please don't kill Isaiah Quinn. And I was after him. I went to him afterwards and like, are you okay? Are you all right? Are you fine? He's like, I'm fine. I'm having heart palpitations about him taking bumps in the ring because obviously it was that when you're done, and you shouldn't be. You got to be careful. You've got to be careful. But he's so good. He's so good as like just the three of them together. It's just magic. Just them interacting with one another, the way their personalities sort of gel, and I think because I'm trying to think how long they've actually been wrestling for. Like obviously they've been wrestling for us since about September or August time, I think. I think August was the first show we had Gorgon on, and then we had Lex on in September, and since then they've been a fixture in the tag team division, and I always look forward to their matches, and I felt they had a really fun match with Shining Wizard in the tournament. They were main event at the first half, and I thought they did really well. So yeah, they just I love their Twitter. I love how they've been torturing Big Rod on Twitter. I think that's great. Been following that. I've been you should engage with the worst. You definitely should engage with the worst.
I love the worst.
I think they're fantastic.
I thought Gorgon was a great interview. I thought Gorgon, he really gets it. I got to say that they really get in the fact, and this is where I want to give a shout out to the Guiding Light Isaiah Quinn, in that they really get that social media can be such an important tool to help get yourself over and also help build your character and build your following. Some wrestlers in the scene, I'm not going to name names, it's like they don't have a social media game. When you're at this level, you got to try to find ways to get yourself over. And the guiding light, Isaiah Quinn, anybody he's with will never have a problem of that because they know how to definitely get a following. They know how to get a response. They know how to draw heat to what they're doing. Where I do think that now, especially with everything that's going on, you got to have a social media. You got to have an active Twitter, an active Instagram, a Facebook page, because otherwise, what are you doing out there? Again, and I get it. There are some wrestlers that it's about their character and it's what they are, and they don't want to be engaging with people.
Some of them just don't want to do it. Some of them just don't want to do it.
But I don't think you do yourself a favor. I really think at this point, you're not. Why should I invest 10 pounds into you? Why should I go and pay 15 pounds to see you? If you don't want a Twitter, you don't want an Instagram. Listen, there are other companies. I don't want to name companies. We've interviewed some of their wrestlers, or we've asked. There was one company in particular that I'm very close with, and I won't name the company's name, but we had asked to get their champion on before he vacated it, and it was like, well, he doesn't really want to talk. Well, how are you a world champion if you don't want to talk? You don't deserve to be a champion. I'm sorry. You have to go out and
well, it's like it is with some people, getting them to do promos is like pulling teeth. Because I do. If you ever watch the
I'm aware.
If you ever watch the stuff, like I'm usually the guy filming all the promos.
I know.
And getting wrestlers to do promos is like trying to herd cats sometimes. Like it's so difficult. But to me, it was like when I wasn't a good wrestler. I'm not even going to pretend I was not a good wrestler.
I'm going to plead the fifth on that one.
No, I wasn't good. I wasn't good. I mean, I could have a competent 6 to 10 minute match, but I was never going to main event or anything like that. One thing I did have though is I did have a promo in me, and I developed my promo relatively early on in my career, and I think that's why I'm able to do backstage interviews. It's why I'm able to do commentary and stuff like that. But I think Mick Foley talks about his book, Go to Promo Land. I'd go to Promo Land. I'd cut promos in the mirror at home and stuff. And it's amazing. And it's just, to me, it's like, if you're a wrestler, it's a part of your skill set that you need to have. You need to be able to cut promos, and just, it happens less now. But when I was breaking in, the amount of people that go like, oh, I don't do promos. It's like, what do you mean you don't do? I just don't do them. Just go out and wrestle in it. It's just like, you need to cut promos. Like some people would never practice them and just go, oh, I'll just do it when I go out there. And then they go out there and do a terrible promo. And it's just like, see, this is why you should practice them. I do, the LWF does have me in to do promo classes sometimes at the LWF Academy. And I always find, like, one thing we always do to start the class out is we'll get them in the ring, and we'll say, right, give me an opponent. All right, Hulk Hogan, give me a date. 1st of January, give me a venue. Tokyo, Japan. Right, you're wrestling Hulk Hogan in Tokyo, Japan. 1st of January. Go. And that's it. It's just, right, Hulk Hogan, 1st of January, Tokyo Dome. Go. And then you got to cut a promo. And sometimes it's just like, it's just like, it's like they're just scared to do it almost. And it's just like, there's like 10 of us in this building, just cut a promo to us. And it's just like, for some of them, it's daunting.
But you're not going to advance. Listen, if you're going to go even to a bigger company, in whether it's Progress or anybody else in the UK, you have to still learn how to do it. You're not just
going to go to WE. If WE is your end goal,
well,
then you can't go to WE unless you promo. No chance.
Oh, but you can't even go to a mid-level company without it, because they're going to want attraction. They're going to want social media, because listen, I did work with Pro Wrestling Magic, right? And they would tell their wrestlers, here's what you have to do. Here's who you have to speak with. They would verify information. So like, even like these little like small to mid-leveling companies, they require that. So yeah, maybe you can get by in the small companies, but you know what? If your goal is to be more than a quote unquote weekend warrior, and I hate to use that term, but if your goal is to be more than a weekend warrior, you have to do interviews with me, or, 3 Count Radio or BBG Wrestling. I mean, look, now I'm not a wrestling show. I'm a radio station. Or I'm not a podcast, so I understand it. So it's a little different with me because I dabble in different things and I have a different niche. But even so, I still think it's a part of it. And one of those reasons I think it's also important, something you touched upon, and I've spoke a lot about this with Nate Reese. I've spoke a lot about it, obviously, with Reynaldo, and certainly the asset Stephen Cross, who I want to get to next. But the Academy. The LWF Academy, I really think, has been an important tool. We're seeing this with a lot of these different wrestlers. You mentioned a Nick Cutter, obviously Nathan Gunn. Cross has been a big part of there. Getsky's come out of the Academy. I mean, we talked about Gorgon and Lex Finnick. I mean, a number of our wrestlers that we're starting to see shine in the LWF came from the Academy. What does the Academy mean to you, and why has it been so successful in growing homegrown talent?
Well, I think it's not just our academy, the LWF. There's lots of great, Future Shot Wrestling's a big one, of course.
Well,
as well.
KOW, I got to give a shout out to KOW. Yeah. They've been good.
Absolutely. GBWs. I mean, I could list all sorts of training schools here, just in the Northwest alone, that are really doing a good job. And I think it's the lifeblood of the business, not just LWF. It's the lifeblood of British wrestling. You've got to keep more. More and more wrestlers. If you want to keep the wrestling scene going, you've got to have new wrestlers. You've got to have new blood. And I think, we've got some people in the LWF Academy who are working really, really hard, and they're looking for an opportunity. And it's just good to see. And because I remember my early days of training, and just being so sort of like, I don't know, just so excited every time to go to training, try something new, do something different, learn a new skill, and it's just, we're just really lucky. We're just really lucky to have so many hungry, talented people. You talk about your Nick Cutters and your Davey Getskis, Chris Stone's from the Academy, Nathan Gunn, Conrad Blaze. We've got Helena Razor, Kelly Van Ness. I could just keep listing people. We got Lana Austin helping out with the training, which is fantastic. Which is just she's so good, and she just helps people. We've had Troy Ryan helping out with the training. He's so good, and it's just like Rob Drake's come to do some classes as well, and we've got a really nice, varied collection of trainers who've come in to help and teach people, and everyone's just soaking it up like a sponge. And it's just so great to get positive feedback saying, oh, this person's doing so well in training. This person's doing so well in training. You can tell they're putting the effort in. We had Dis Rosada and the Masked Marauder wrestling on the Winter of Discontent. And they stepped in last minute to face Synergy. And I thought they did a great job. I thought they were fantastic. I thought they did really well. And they're products of the Academy, and they're working hard. And I'm sure they'll want more opportunities going forward. We've got lads like Buster Robin who's coming through. We've got a really, really good bunch of people in there, and it's not just the lifeblood of the LWF; it's the lifeblood of wrestling in general, and all over this country, all over your country, Mexico, Japan, Europe, India, New Zealand, Chile. There are people who are learning how to do this.
Oh, how about Canada? That's where Reynaldo learned. Believe it or not, Reynaldo. Yeah. I didn't even know that. Listen, I had the asset Stephen Cross message me, and he said, I didn't realize that Reynaldo actually learned in Canada. There were people out there that listened to our interview and actually didn't realize that Reynaldo, the LWF World Champion, was actually trained in Canada. I mean, so you never know where you could be trained.
I remember him telling me, I think he trained with Taylor Wilde at some point. Yep. Taylor Wilde of Impact Wrestling fame.
It was Edge and Christian's early partners. I forget who it was. It El Generico, I think it was. There was somebody that it was a part of that in outside of Toronto. He lived there, Reynaldo, for 3 months. I think it was like 3 or 4 months, and he came back a second time in 2005. This was, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, because I remember him telling me about it, because he was like, him and his sister are big Impact Wrestling fans. I've been over the years. And I remember he was saying like, oh yeah, I know Taylor Wilde. I was like, really? That's really cool. Like, because she's so talented as well. I'm so glad she came back to wrestling after being away for a bit. She's really good. And it's like, I was just mentioning then some of the women we've had going through. Obviously, we'll talk about Steve Cross. I need to talk to you about the Lancashire Riot as well. I can't believe we've got this far without mentioning that. But yeah, well, we've got big news about that when it involves our women's division. But yeah. That there are women coming through as we speak training hard in the LWF Academy, and hopefully we'll see them on shows sooner than not.
Absolutely. And again, if you like what you hear from the LWF, I cannot stress it enough. Please give the LWF a follow on Twitter, LWF Thought, Instagram, LWF Wrestling, Facebook, like the LWF page, subscribe to the YouTube page, also Instagram, follow the training and the academy pages, because I can guarantee you, if you are a wrestler or a prospective wrestler in the UK, you will definitely want to get in touch with Steve Bibby and everybody else in the LWF, because this is a company that you're going to learn everything. You're going to get that whole package. There are a lot of places that you have to go out, and it's kind of hard. And look at Reynaldo. He had to go to Canada. I mean, so now we have those tools at our disposal. You can do it. Anybody can do it. The LWF is going to help you. And one of those reasons why you're going to get that help is because of Michael Fitzgerald. Mikey Fitzgerald is doing a phenomenal job here with the LWF. And I will get back to the LWF in a bit, but I know that we want to talk with you about this because it was kind of teased upon with Reynaldo and Wildfire, Nate Reese, and we might want to call you Mikey Dangerously because we know that you're a huge fan of ECW, and I promised you off the air I would swap a few ECW stories, and I wanted to, obviously you kind of touched upon it at the very beginning a little while ago, but for our audience watching and listening to this, talk about what ECW meant to you in terms of your getting into wrestling.
Well, I mean, the first ECW show I saw was Living Dangerously 99. Because I've been aware of ECW prior to that, because I used to read the wrestling magazines. In England, it was a bit, unless you had satellite or cable television, you couldn't really watch wrestling until second half of 99 when we finally got worldwide on Channel 5, and it was about 3 months behind. But what happened is, one thing we had in the UK, which I don't think you guys had in America, is we had really good sort of like distribution of ECW tapes. Like around, I think, second half of 99, we started getting all the pay-per-views on VHS and DVD. And we also started getting a lot of the classic shows as well. Obviously, the classic shows had the music dubbed out, which was a shame.
But I didn't know. Whenever all those wrestlers came out to those themes, like Pantera Walk or
it was such a big part of the show.
Nobody knew. Hey, nobody knew I could get sued for copyright infringement. Paul Heyman didn't know.
He knew. He knew. I think he got away with it by saying it was ambient sound or something, so he got away with it for a while. But yeah. So I saw Living Dangerously 99, read about it in the wrestling mags, and I heard how good the Jerry Lynn Rob Van Dam match was. So I thought I must see this for myself. So I got it Christmas 99. I got Living Dangerously 99 on the video. I don't think my parents knew what it was, but I sort of kayfabed them. And that match was amazing because I'd never seen anything like that. I hadn't started watching Japanese stuff yet. I'd only just started watching WCW with Billy Kidman and Rey Mysterio and Juventud Guerrera and those sort of guys. Yeah. But so seeing Jerry Lynn and Rob Van Dam wrestle together and doing those counter sequences and everything, it just completely blew my mind. And then obviously you got Tajiri and Super Crazy and stuff like that. And I just became a really, really big fan of ECW. I just really liked it. I think in 2001, when ECW went out of business, they were probably my favorite company. WWF was a close second, and WCW was way out in third, although I did still used to watch it. But like, I just liked it. I think what I liked about ECW was, at first I liked it just because it had good wrestling, and it was wild, and it was like the Rocky Horror Picture Show of wrestling. It was like a rock concert come to life, which just happened to. It was like a rock concert was going on, and there just happened to be a wrestling show as well. But then, like, what I sort of realized watching it was, because I can start becoming a little bit smarter, and I sort of realized that ECW was out of the three main companies, ECW was the truest meritocracy of the three, because in ECW it didn't matter what you looked like, didn't matter your size, or even what your wrestling style was. If you could connect with the fans, if the fans could get behind you, if the fans could get behind you and you could connect with them, you get a chance. In ECW, Spike Dudley could main event a pay-per-view. In ECW, Super Crazy didn't speak a lick of English, still one of the top stars, main event pay-per-views, big guy, because he was such a good wrestler and people liked him. And I just watched it and I just thought, this is the one company where being good is enough. And it might have been because, they had a thinner roster, so they had to make the most of what they could have. But
they had some big names, though. Yeah. Listen, I mean, Sid was in ECW in '99.
Oh, no,
Bam Bigelow. But I'm just saying they had some names. It wasn't as if like they were a bare bones roster.
Well, towards the end they were. In 2001, it was threadbare.
Well, yeah. Well, in the second half of 2000, when Mike Awesome left and famously he basically walked out of ECW, that was where the company started to thin the roster out. But up until even the middle of 2000, that they still had a decent roster. I mean, they had.
Yeah, I mean, even the guys who were left who were good because it opened up the doors. When then you got Tony Marmaluke getting a chance. You've got Diane Durgan Roadkill getting elevated. You've got like
C.W. Anderson. C.W. Anderson.
I love C.W. Anderson. I think I loved him. Thought he was great. You got Kid Cash getting a chance. But to me, it's like in WCW, it didn't matter how good you were, unless you were politically connected, you weren't going anywhere. Yeah. And in WWE, you had to have the look, and if you didn't have the look, it didn't really matter. Whereas in ECW, if you were good, that was enough. Spike Dudley, he was good, so he gets the main event pay-per-view against Mike Awesome and have a really good match. Tajiri didn't really speak much English, but he was so talented and so good and just such a good wrestler. Mikey Whipwreck won the Triple Crown. He won all 3 belts because, and this is Mikey Whipwreck. He had terrible looking gear and he was just, but like he was the fans loved him. So it was like, 911, all he could do was a choke slam. Doesn't matter. He's
Enemy. Listen,
they love him.
Was one of the greatest tag
Public Enemy.
And ECW, and then everywhere else, it was like, they didn't.
Yeah, and to be fair, even in WCW, they got over for a certain degree.
At the beginning, yeah, they won the tag championship for a cup of coffee. Yeah, at the beginning.
They were over to a certain extent, but like it was just like, can you get over? Yes. Okay. Are you talented at something? And then Paul Heyman would go, can you do A and B? No. Well, I can do X, Y, and Z. And he'd go, right, okay. So we'll have you do X, Y, and Z, and we'll never have you do A and B. And great. That's what you're supposed to do. When life gives you lemons, you make lemonade. It was just, and I just loved it. And looking back on it now, it's just you watch it and you see guys who perhaps they aren't the best wrestler in the world, but it doesn't matter because the fans like them, and they just did what they were good at. And it's just, again, it's. Of all the major wrestling companies until AEW came around, and Ring of Honor, obviously, the closest thing you had to a meritocracy in professional wrestling in American wrestling was ECW. It was the closest thing. It was like WWE would actively even remember how long it took WWE to like finally give Daniel Bryan the main event of WrestleMania. How much the fans had to fight them on it. In ECW, he'd be like the champion. Years before that, if Paul Heyman was hearing those reactions for him,
listen, he would have been like Rob Van Dam. He would have held the television championship for over a year. He would have basically been. They would have saw right away. Paul would have said, "We got to build around this guy." Whereas WWE, they're very. I mean, it's hit and miss. Some guys, it's like they have their perceived image. If you don't fit, listen. The biggest example to me of that was Taz. Taz in ECW was unstoppable. He was the war machine. He comes to WWE and he's basically, and he becomes a commentator. It was like he choked out Kurt Angle. Then the next night they said it was illegal. And then after that, he was never the same afterwards.
No.
So there's certain guys that they don't cross over. Raven was another example where he was okay in WCW, but in ECW, he's a godfather. Everywhere else, he was okay.
You've heard the story, haven't you, what happened? Like when he showed up in WWE. You've heard the story. So Jim Ross signed Raven because Jim Ross rated him and thought he was good. He didn't tell Vince. So Vince just walked in one day and sees Raven there and goes, Who hired Raven, pal? He was like, he couldn't believe this is in 2000 when Raven was there. He went, who hired Raven? Who the hell hired Raven? And then Raven ends up against all odds, ended up getting pretty over, and he had that really great match with Rhino. That match with Rhino at Backlash 2001, that's so good. Where Rhino gores the shopping trolley, that was so good. He actually, for a while there, Raven was actually pretty over in WWE for like a 4 or 5 month period in the hardcore division. He actually got pretty over.
He had a few matches with Kane in the Big Show, and like you said, Rhino.
And I love Raven as well. Like I think you go back and watch ECW back in, but even you watch his Ring of Honor stuff, like his Ring of Honor feud with CM Punk in 2003, so good, and it's so funny as well because like they basically with CM Punk and Raven, they inverted the Raven Dreamer feud. So the whole point was like Tommy Dreamer could never beat Raven. All of a sudden, Raven can never beat CM Punk, and it works again. 8 years later, it's fresh again. It's great. I love it. I'll go back and watch ECW shows. I watched Barbed Wire Hoodies and Chokeslams recently, which is what a name to start off with. And it's like it's a show where like there isn't really any particular good wrestling on it, but it doesn't really matter. It's just everyone's. It's just 2 hours of like people who are super over with the ECW crowd, just doing stuff. 911's killing poor Jim Steele, just giving him choke slam after choke slam after choke slam, and the crowd are going nuts. And Paul Heyman's cutting a promo on poor Jim Steele as he's out in the ring. It's just great. It's great. I love it. I loved how 911's music was Frankenstein as well. Just what was it? Is it?
Well, how about remember New Jack used to come out to Ice Cube? Was it Natural Born Killers?
Natural Born Killers, yeah. And Spike Dudley came out to Highway to Hell, and Chris Candido came out to Back in Black.
War Machine. My favorite was Shane Douglas, Deep Purple, Perfect Strangers. That was like man, that was so good. When the Triple Threat they would come out there. And that theme song.
Bam Bam Bigelow had Welcome to the Jungle.
Yeah, and then the Impact Players had
Snap Your Finger, Snap Your Neck.
Yeah, White Zombie was
Bloodstorm.
Yeah, White Zombie. And trying to think, Pantera Walk was RVD. Oh, the biggest one. I can't. If I don't mention it, I'm gonna get killed. Alice in Chains, Man in the Box, Tommy Dreamer.
Man in the Box with Tommy Dreamer. Yeah. Oh God, you just keep listening to all these great ones. Like what is it? Tommy Rogers for some reason had Boogeyman by White Zombie. It's like Sorry. It's like Tommy Rogers from the Fantastics. Let's give him this really heavy remix of a song by who was it? Kool and the Gang who sung that originally.
My favorite, believe it or not, was one of the few ones who didn't come out with a song, and that was Sid. Sid came out to no. Bless you.
I just walked
Sid
out.
Came out to no music. Remember, Sid would come out. There would be no music when Sid would come out.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of Sid. I'm not a massive fan of Sid. I didn't like
Sid,
it.
I will say one thing about
I really that Hardcore Heaven '99 still angers me for the way they just made Paul Lance Storm and Justin Credible look rubbish. Like he wouldn't do anything for him. So I'm not a massive fan of it.
I will say, in one sense, if you look back at Sid's career and probably why he's not in the quote unquote WWE Hall of Fame, is that if you do look back on his runs, and he did have like in the '90s a significant amount of main events he was in, but like even his runs as world champ, and I did love Sid, admittedly, as a kid, but Sid's runs as world champion, looking back, they're probably like the weakest runs a world champion has ever had. I mean, his WCW runs, his two WWF runs, I mean, his runs as world champion were pretty weak. I mean, so in one sense, like, I could see where you're coming from, at least when it comes to Sid, because like I said, he was a part of a lot of main events, but he's probably like a part of like some of the worst main events. And famously, I shouldn't say it, but I'm sure you remember the end of WrestleMania 13 where The Undertaker tombstoned him and Sid crapped in his pants.
But I mean, because to me, like when Sid came into ECW, there's two things that you'd want to do with Sid in ECW. You have Spike Dudley kill him as for his giant killer, or you have Taz choke him out, and we didn't get to see either of them. You know, I'd like at least give us one of them. Like I loved to, Joe. What when Spike Dudley was beating every big guy, they'd bring like Viscera in.
Bam Bigelow put everybody in ECW. He gave them a chance to get over. Taz, Rob Van Dam, Spike Dudley. I mean, he
the match
did
with
that.
Van Dam. I watched that recently. The one where Van Dam wins the TV title in Buffalo. I think
was that Heat Wave? Was that Heat Wave '98?
No, it was Hardcore TV. It was like April '98. It was in Buffalo. And it's Rob Van Dam against Bam Bam Bigelow. And I just remember thinking, like, first time I ever saw that match, I thought, oh, this is going to be a Styles clash. Then I watched it, and it was brilliant. It was really good. And obviously his match with Taz in Asbury Park, where they destroy the ring, they go through the ring. I watched those, like, because obviously I'm so jealous of you. I think maybe you might have been a bit too young to actually go to the shows live, but I watched them.
You know what? I got to be honest, and this is where I'm going to tie in a couple of ECW stories. One you'll appreciate, one you probably won't, depending on if you were a fan of them. So I couldn't go to the ECW shows, even though they were at the Elks Lodge. The
Elks Lodge. The funny thing is now in the LWF, because the Elks Lodge has that wacky sort of Fire Pro Wrestling sort of diagonal hard cam, doesn't it? We've got that for our past two shows.
And I've noticed some of your packages remind me a little bit of ECW with the music.
Oh, you mean the Pulp Fiction stuff? Oh yeah, definitely. That was me. That was absolutely that was my idea. I pitched that one.
But I was told.
I'm well. I mean, like I got to give a shout out to Adam Yates. He's the guy who did the music. He did the sort of because I didn't want us to get sued. So he did a really he called it Surf Song, but I call it Miserable Louie just because obviously it's Miserable Louie is the song they use, isn't it, for the Pulp Fiction montage in ECW.
Yep. I heard it, and I just know that a few wrestlers that we speak with, I won't name them, said that was your idea, so I won't.
Oh yeah. Well, like and to be honest, at first, because like I underestimate sometimes like how many people actually know what ECW is. So like I remember saying to them, pitching it to them, saying like, "Hey, we're going to film all this and put it all together in a montage," and they look at me like, "You what?" They were like, they seemed unsure about it, and then when they actually saw it, they were like, "Oh, I get what you were wanting to do now." But like, yeah, that was to me, that was like I'd always wanted to do that, like for years. Like I loved it. I love it because it's like you have like 6-7 minutes and you get like 20 people on camera there, and what I love about it as well is if you're not comfortable doing a promo, it's fine. Give us 10 seconds. Just give us 10 seconds and we'll stick it in the montage. You'll get your character over, you get your storyline over. You don't have to do a full-on promo. And I love it because I just love those. I remember showing him to Steve and just the first time, and he was like going like, because I think Steve took some convincing because I don't think he really understood what I was on about because I don't think he remembered that aspect of ECW, or I don't think he watched a lot of it. And I was saying, yeah, we'll do the Pulp Fiction montage. He's like, what? I said, yeah, we put all these slides. I showed him the one where it's where Mick Foley goes to like goes to the theme park, and you see him on and you see him on the roller coaster. He goes, "This is extreme." He's on the roller coaster.
I remember that. I do remember that.
And like I think Blue Meanie's dressed as Blue Dust, and it's just like I remember showing him this going like he went like, okay,
the BWO.
Yeah, the BWO, and I was like, and then once he saw that, he got it then, and he was like, okay, well we can do this. And yeah, I just love that. So yeah, that's a total homage.
I figured that. So I've teased it. I have to give you my 2 ECW stories. The first one, I'm going to go with the not so good story. So first story was I was actually in an airport. This was in Florida. The one time my parents took me and my brothers on a vacation, I actually ran into the Dudleys, Bubba Ray and Devon Dudley. And I have to say, and I'm probably going to get in a lot of trouble with this, especially now that I'm in the radio, quote-unquote radio business. Bubba Ray Dudley was like the biggest douchebag on the face of the earth because I wanted to go up to him and say, "Hey, I'm a really big fan of yours. I watched all your stuff in ECW." And I looked at him, and he had such a miserable look on his face, like, I don't want to say anything further. So that was my first, like, I'm never going to be a fan of the Dudleys really because I loved the Dudleys in ECW. They were like, I just loved the Dudleys in ECW. They were good in WWE. But
Bubba Ray's a Liverpool supporter. What do you expect?
What's that?
Bubba Ray's a Liverpool supporter. What do you expect?
Well, he's a number of different things.
He's a cop-out. I've heard Devon's very nice though. I've heard Devon's a very nice guy.
Yeah, Devon. He's actually also. I'm a reverend, so he's actually, I believe, a reverend also. So Devon, I'm gonna say, I think Devon's a good guy. But I've actually heard a number of his interviews, and he's very down to earth. And Bubba Ray, he's bully right now. Look, he's got some great points. I listen to him from time to time. I don't listen to him as much anymore because we have Sportswire Radio, but from that time on, I'm a kid and I wanted to go up and speak to the guy and actually get his autograph, and the guy was a douchebag. So I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, it's the thing, isn't it? Like, I'm always afraid to like meet people who I like and admire because I'm worried that it'll soil my memories. Like, I remember meeting Ted DiBiase and him being very unimpressed with me. And it's sort of like...
Well, Ted DiBiase, I could see that, though. Yeah. I've heard enough stories from Ted DiBiase that I could see that from. I mean,
yeah. But then I met Virgil, and Virgil was awesome. Virgil was like... Because it was at a convention in Birmingham, we were wrestling on it. And then Virgil came over and like punched one of us and got a pop. Virgil came over and hit someone. And afterwards, he came over to us and he was giving us advice on how to properly apply a wrist lock. And to me, it's just, and so wrestling superstar Virgil told me how to properly apply a wrist lock, but he was really nice. I think he was a bit stoned.
I'm sure you follow his social media. That guy's like way out there now. I mean, so
I think he was hoping to go to Olive Garden, but then someone no one had the heart to tell me he didn't have Olive Gardens in England.
Yeah, I mean,
he had to go to a Harvester instead.
And I will say, obviously, with the radio, there are a lot of professional athletes I've become very good friends with because we have the radio means. So not everybody is a douchebag, but Bubba is definitely on my list.
I'm very lucky. Like most of the people I've met have been very nice. Like if it's like, I've met a few Everton players. I met Graham Sharp, who's just recently been added to the Everton board.
I have Premier League on the radio dial from time to time, so I'm familiar with some of this stuff, believe it or not. So that's why I'm endeared a little bit here.
Yeah. But he was very nice when I met him. I think Ian Snowden was there. He was very nice. I've met like Yerry Mina. He was nice.
Sure.
When wrestlers, I've met like Eddie Edwards was always very nice. Always liked Eddie Edwards. Always a chill guy. So yeah, I've met like sort of like name wrestlers. They've usually always been cool. Pete Dunne.
Absolutely.
Always loved working with Pete Dunne. Always like I know him matches and he's great.
I know him from KOW. He actually wrestled in KOW for a bit. So I mean that's where the guys over there. And shout out to ALP and everybody there at KOW. They've been very, very big supporters of ours. So I wanted to at least give an answer. But I got to give you my other ECW story.
What's your other story?
Oh, so here's my other ECW story real quick because I want to move on here. So the other story was as a kid, I used to listen to, like, I guess almost like a little hole-in-the-wall college radio station. It was called Kingsborough Community College here in New York. In Brooklyn, I used to live near it. And one time there used to be a college radio show that used to play wrestling talk. They used to call it, as a play on Saturday night's main event, they called it Saturday afternoon's main event. And for whatever reason, the guys who were doing the show, and I remember it well, it was Platon Laguerre, Sean, the People's Champion, and Christopher Morton. They got Rob Van Dam when he was Rob Van Dam. We're talking about when he was like, this wasn't like they got like Judge Jeff Jones or when they got like,
lay off Jeff Jones. He had a terrible gimmick, but he was trying his best.
But the point was, it wasn't like they got like even like Chris Chetty. They got Rob Van Dam to call into this little hole-in-the-wall college radio station, and I couldn't believe my eyes. I'm listening on a dial, and I'm like trying to go like this. I'm trying to like press the buttons up, but they would talk wrestling, and they would talk every single wrestling company in 2 and 3 hours, and I would actually call in. And one of the times I actually couldn't get through on the line was because for whatever reason, they had Rob Van Dam. I don't know how they pulled it off, but in those days, it's not like now where you have to say, "Oh, what's your social media?" Because I'm in the radio business, and I have to get vetted when I want to get important people on. So I don't know how these guys pulled it off, but they got this little hole-in-the-wall dial to get Rob Van Dam to call, and that might have been the greatest 20 minutes of my life on the radio. And he answered every question. He answered the feuds. He answered the TV championship. They asked him about his future with ECW. They answered him about all these different things that they had about ECW. I couldn't believe it. It was probably to this day the greatest 20 minutes of radio in my life to this day. I don't know how they pulled it off, but and I haven't told this story in like 20 years because he came on the air 2000. So that's the greatest probably 20 minutes I've had listening to a radio program. Was Rob Van Dam called up into little Kingsborough Community College, 90.7 WKRB, which I don't even think the dial is active right now as we speak. He called up in there to a college radio show, Saturday afternoon's main event, and he gave him like 20 minutes. I couldn't believe it. So I thought you would appreciate that story. So I thought
I would probably, because obviously, like, if you're an ECW fan, everyone wants to go and see an ECW show at the ECW arena, don't they? I think I'd probably rather go to one in Queens. That Queens crowd was nuts.
The Elks Lodge was a tough.
Elks Lodge.
And it was in a location in Queens that was kind of like off the beat, gritty. It was exactly like what you saw in the ring, outside the ring.
Yeah, like they call it the Madhouse of Extreme, didn't they?
Yeah.
Like whenever I go back and watch like classic ECW. Like from like usually because I think they started running it in 97, didn't they? Was that roughly when they started running it? They ran it from 97 all the way up until the end.
The Elks Lodge. I think it was
the Elks Lodge, yeah, because the Elks Lodge is where Bam Bam Bigelow won the ECW title from Shane Douglas. And the last show, the Elks Lodge, I think they had Taz and the Dudley Boys as the guests because they were in WWE at the time.
Yep.
And WWE let Taz come in, and Taz did, and had a nice little.
Well, what we learned from years later on was that WWE was paying Paul Heyman to keep ECW alive the last
for
year
a little bit. Yeah,
that's why we saw more WWE people come back in. Like the Dudleys came back one time. Spike, you mentioned Taz famously against Mike Awesome. Listen, the only time that we had a WCW wrestler wrestle a WWE wrestler in an ECW ring for a title was Mike Awesome and Taz in the Monday Night Wars. We had Rick Rude in 1 week appeared on ECW Hardcore TV, Monday Night Raw, and then Monday Nitro. But the only time, it's a footnote. You can look it up. The only time we had an ECW champion / WCW wrestler wrestle a WWE or WWF wrestler in the ring in an ECW ring was Mike Awesome and Taz, and it was for a championship. That's the only time in history we ever had that happen in the entire Monday Night Wars. Never had that happen otherwise.
Yeah, it's like what? It's so weird to me that that they still even poached him at that point, because it felt like, let's poach someone just so we can poach someone. Who should we get? Mike Awesome.
You know what though? He was the champion, and he was like a dominant guy. I mean,
unfortunately, because I went back and watched a lot of the hardcore TV from 2000. That they just started building Rob Van Dam versus Mike Awesome, and it was going to be. And then Rob Van Dam breaks his leg just as they're about to get to it.
And
so excited.
You know what? And I think he came on maybe right before or right around that time he broke his leg. But I do think that if Rob Van Dam would have got the ECW belt, they could have hung on a little longer, because he was the one mainstream chip they had, and he didn't want to leave. Don't forget, Taz was the ECW champion. He got the big money deal with WWF, right? Yeah. The Dudleys were the tag champs. They got poached. Bigelow got the big money deal with WCW. You mentioned Sid, right? He left. All the wrestlers that were in that company, Shane Douglas, they all went to greener pastures. Rob Van Dam didn't leave. So if they would have had him healthy, that might have changed things. But Mike Awesome was the one guy that, they got him over. He had the matches with Tanaka, don't forget those famous matches.
They were so good.
He disposed of Taz pretty easily. I mean, so Mike Awesome, he had the look. He was a good champion for ECW. But then he left to go to WCW and get the big money deal. And then another guy who became the fat chick Thriller, and that 70s guy. And then he went to WWF, and he was basically a promotional.
Nothing with him. I mean, the one person they should have done with it, I do think they missed the trick in 2000, because obviously Paul was big behind Just Incredible, and fair enough, I like Just Incredible, but when Just Incredible, when they turned Steve Corino babyface, first off, I'm amazed it even worked, but it did. He shows up in the ECW arena and he's hugely over, and they go to the Hammerstein Ballroom, and it's him against Corino versus Just Incredible. And that, if you ever watch it, I think it's I
remember it. Because Steve Corino was in a feud with Dusty Rhodes. Remember Dusty Rhodes? Yeah. ECW? Remember that?
Yeah. And then they managed to turn Steve Corino face, and he was over. And they have this great match at the Hammerstein Ballroom. And Just Incredible wins. And it just, you just felt it. That, to me, I felt if they put Steve Corino over there in that match with Just Incredible, they'd have had their next babyface superstar. I genuinely think, and I think that would have given the company a little bit of extra life. They could have rode Steve Corino's coattails for a few months after that.
Yeah, but you know what though, and we'll move on here, and we got another about 20 or so minutes. So with, of course,
Michael right, because you want to talk about Steve Cross, don't you? And I'd like to talk about Lancashire Riot. So
a few other things I want to promote in the LWF. I definitely want to make sure I promote the LWF as much as possible, because ECW is out of business. The LWF, we want to continue to have them in business. But I will say one thing on ECW, and kind of tying in a bow on with them, and I'm sure we'll bring you on anytime to talk about ECW. I'd love to do that. But
I love talking ECW, yeah.
ECW's problem also was that when they got the big network deal, they got on the T, and here in America, it was the TNN, which was the foreshadowing of Spike TV. It was the Nashville network. They get on to TNN, and they got on a Friday night. It was 8 o'clock at that time, and it was kind of like a half-ass version of what you saw on hardcore TV, and they would promote Roller Jam and all the time afterwards, and they didn't have a true lead-in for it. And at the time, the TNN wasn't like being on USA or TBS or TNT, and they were hurt by that. Also, the TNN also, they would all of a sudden preempt ECW or make them change the product, and it was a very combative relationship. And I think they were hurt by the network deal that they had. They were on a big a kind of a cable network here for I'd say about 13 or 14 months. When that didn't work to the way that they promoted it, that was where the company kind of, in a lot of ways, I think, did go south, because you had to have a TV distribution deal. They didn't quite have it. The pay-per-view deal, hurt them a little bit. The video game deal helped them go for a little, because they were on.
Kept them in business.
Took them after WWF left to go to THQ. I remember that very well, because I remember playing those video games. So that also helped and hurt. So they never really had true footing. So they shot themselves in the foot for bad business deals. Some of it, again, was just luck. Some of it was just, look, it is what it is. Well, I think ECW, yes, they were hurt by RVD's injury. They were hurt by maybe some of the lack of turns. But I also think, in closing, the network deal they had, that network they were on, never understood their product. They didn't quite have the pay-per-view distribution worldwide. And I think they didn't quite have the other things that WCW and WWF at the time had. So that was, unfortunately, their timely demise. They went from being sort of this underground cult to trying to break it, and they didn't quite get there, and they didn't quite get over the hump. So that was one thing. But I want to get back to the LWF, and obviously I'll get to Stephen Cross in a minute, but I want to talk about going into the next event here. We've obviously just had the Winter of Discontent. And for our audience watching and listening to this that will check this out here after we're off the air, what can we look forward to here at the next LWF event?
Well, the big thing, our next event, 12th of February, Buckshaw Community Centre. It's going to be the Lancashire Riot, which is our annual Rumble event. And usually what it is a Rumble where we have the men on the roster fight to decide who will face the champion at Slamaganza. But this year, we're doing something different, because this year, the Rumble, the Riot, Lancashire Riot, will be all women, and it'll be to crown the first ever LWF Women's Champion. That stemmed from a situation on the previous show, Winter of Discontent, where we had 8 ladies in the ring, all demanding to be in the hunt for the belt. So Helena Razor said, "Let's give us the Riot. We want the Riot. Give us the Riot, or we'll riot." and Stevie B agreed, because he had no choice. So so 12th of February, Lancashire Riot, 15 women. What the way it is, it's just like any other Rumble. So they'll enter one every 90 seconds until all 15 are in there. You get eliminated by being thrown over the top rope. The only thing that's different, that we do a little bit different, is when it gets down to the final 2, it becomes pinfall or submission. So that's how we differ from what other companies do when it comes to Rumbles. So, we're going to crown our first ever LWF. Oh, my chili broke. And we're going to crown our first ever LWF Women's Champion. I've seen Steve show me a picture of what the belt looks like. It looks belting. It looks great. So,
okay, and you guys got a great belt, by the way, because Reynaldo has actually brought the belt on the air. Reynaldo's a great salesman, clearly. So he brought the belt on the air. So I am expecting the LWF Women's Championship to be just as good, maybe even better than Reynaldo's belt.
It's lovely. And we're going to have, we've already, I think we're going to be announcing, we know some of the entrants. Unfortunately, Harley Hudson was supposed to be in it, but she's suffered a broken foot. So she'll be out for 6 to 8 weeks. So she's going to be joining us on commentary instead for that show, which I'm excited for, because she's a good talker. She's really charismatic. So I'm looking forward to that. We've got Lana Rosson's going to be in it. Melanie Price is going to be in it. We have got Helena Razor, Kelly Van Ness, Tonga.
Tonga is all over the place. Tonga is like a superstar.
She's fantastic. She's absolutely fantastic. Aurora Tevez is going to be in it. I believe Lucy Sky is going to be in it. Stacey Rose, is going to be in it. Sorry, she's going to kill me for that. Stacey Rose is going to be in there. And we're trying to just talk to some other people to get in there as well. We're negotiating with people. There are some big names who are going to be in this. We've got Lily Winter's going to be making her debut in the LWF. Jenny B is going to be there.
Don't tell us the names, because we want everybody to go to the LWF social media pages to find out in the next
week. Yeah. We're going to be announcing them. Talking about filming interviews earlier, we're going We're going to try and put together one of those old school WF Royal Rumble style videos where it's like you get a quick, where it's like I'm going to win the Rumble because of this. We're going to try and get one with everyone in the match if we can. I managed to film a few on Saturday. I managed to herd some cats and get some done on Saturday. So we're going to try and get some more sent in. I'm looking forward to it. I always look forward to the Riot because it's just Rumbles are fun. People like Rumbles, don't they?
It's Rumble season, so you got to do the Rumble. Right now, we're in Rumble season. So this has always been my favorite time of the year in wrestling, from, let's say, November to, like, obviously the big one in Mania. So this has got to be the perfect time to have that Lancashire Riot. And, of course, again, you want to follow the LWF on Instagram at the LWF Wrestling, Twitter, LWF like the Facebook page, LWF. Also subscribe to the LWF's page on YouTube to get more information on this event, because I got a feeling this is going to be an even better event than the Winter of Discontent, V is for Vengeance, Fightmare for Christmas, because the LWF events are getting better and better and better.
And they're all available if you want to watch them on Powered 4 TV. So search for Powered 4 TV, sign up there. We've got some matches on there for free. The big match that's on there for free is the Mosh Pit Mayhem, which is Synergy against Shining Wizard, which is possibly, to this point, probably the best match in LWF history. If not, it's a contender.
Well, Synergy, listen, they're in a match in another company that was famously borrowing off the TLC match. And I'm not going to name the company because we want to talk LWF. We love that company, though, I will say. But
you can mention them. Give them a shout out. It's cool.
Pro Wrestling.
Yeah, because it's funny, actually, because before the show on Saturday, Tonga came up to me and sort of said, like, am I okay to mention that I'm Tonga 2 belts and I've got the Future Shock title? And I was like, of course. We acknowledge we're not one of those companies that pretends other wrestling companies don't exist. We acknowledge other wrestling. Right. We acknowledge Future Shock Wrestling. We acknowledge Grand Pro Wrestling. We acknowledge Odyssey Pro Wrestling. We acknowledge TNT. I've got another one there. I was going to say.
We do a lot of work with KOW.
Wrestle Island. Got to give my shout out to Pete at Wrestle Island. He's my fellow Evertonian.
BWR. Have to mention BWR.
Absolutely, yeah. Just Northwest alone, there's so many great companies. And
I got to give a shout out to the Kingdom of Wrestling, the new Kingdom of Wrestling promotion.
Absolutely, give a shout to them. Like I said, we don't pretend other wrestling companies don't exist in the LWF. That's the first thing from the beginning of the commentary. Whenever someone's been somewhere, always going to mention it. If someone's a big star in Future Shock, we'll always say this person's a big star in Future Shock. This person's a big star in Grand Pro Wrestling or the Wrestle Island or TNT.
That's fair.
But we'll say it because I hate it when wrestling companies pretend other wrestling companies don't exist. It's like even when like ROH and CCW would be like sniping at each other and pretend the other two didn't exist. It's like no, there's
but WWF and WWE would always do that up until like recently. I mean, you would always say the other promotion or down south or somewhere, or that company in Philadelphia they would use, or overseas they would use the other term from time to time. So that's the McMahon trick. Don't acknowledge your opponent. I have a background in politics. That was always the same in politics. Never give your opponent any credence or mention them by name. But somebody I do want to mention by name, and he's become a staple to the station, a staple to the brand, and I'd love to get your perspective on him because he's actually been a part of some very intriguing storylines here in the LWF. He wrestled Jack Roberts, who we just saw in action against Reynaldo, our champion, our reigning defending LWF champion, and he had his own runnings with the Wrecking Crew, who are now our tag team champions, and that is none other than the Asset Stephen Cross. I mean, what do you make of the Asset Stephen Cross right now in the LWF, and where does he go from here?
Yeah, I really like Steve Cross, actually. I remember seeing him for the first time. You know what struck me the first time I saw him? Has how much he looks like Just Incredible. Like, I saw him and I just thought, like, I just saw Just Incredible. Like, when I saw him, and I like Just Incredible. So that immediately got him over with me straight away. And I saw when we... obviously, we all had to take a break from wrestling because of the Backstreet Boys reunion tour. When things picked up again, I saw that he'd been training at the LWF Academy, and I sort of suggested to Steve, said like, "Oh, can we have Steve Cross on some shows?" And so we had him in against Jack Roberts, and that was good. And then we needed someone. The Wrecking Crew needed a partner for Fight Me Before Christmas, and Steve Cross ended up getting hired and getting in the job for that as well. And I really like his wrestling. He's a good, solid meat potatoes type wrestler. and he had a match with Jack Roberts that I loved. Like that was just like because Jack Roberts is so technically sound and proficient, and everything Steve Cross does, it's just, he's not flashy, but that's by design. He's not there to be flashy. He's there to be a mean guy who beats people up, and he's very good at it. And yeah, I was really happy to get him in. We're hoping we'll be able to have him or get some more opportunities for him. That's the thing about our roster. It's just so stacked that I know Steve's just wants to have so many people involved. There's so many people who we would like. We had Cameron Solas on the last show making his.
He's a big deal in Ignition.
He's great.
Deal.
He's great. So it's like, obviously him of Scott Oberman and Dan Evans, the Mercenary Squad, they do a Freebirds thing. So you never know which two Mercs are going to show up when we book the Mercs. But it's just I just look at all this talent, like all these really talented guys like just coming through, like not just Steve Cross, but you've got the Blazing Guns, you've got the Worst, you've got Shining Wizard, all these really talented people, and it's just like we could probably do a 5-hour show in the LWF and squeeze everyone in, and like it's like obviously you don't want to because it's too long, but like it's just. I know there's a lot of selection headaches, should we say, but it's good headaches to have because there's so many talented people out there, and it's just about making sure everyone gets a fair shake of the stick, I think. And Steve's someone who I'm sure we'll see him in the LWF again. He came to watch the show, actually. He came to watch the show on Saturday. He wasn't on the show because it was the tournament and there weren't many slots, but he still came to watch and sort of be there. And I always appreciate when guys do that and to be there and support.
Well, he's a big wrestling fan and he's a great guy. So
Man United fan as well, I believe. Big Man United fan. Big Manchester United fan.
He's gone to 500 matches, by the way. 500. He posted on Facebook 500 matches. So
he's probably. I'm trying to think how many Everton games I've been to. I think the answer's too many. That's probably what I'd say.
So he documented it. He actually documented how many games, and he's also a huge UFC fan. And I also want to say, I think he's in the best shape of any wrestler in the LWF.
Oh, he's in incredible shape. I mean, we've had Solid Durson. He's in fantastic shape as well.
Yeah. I saw him wrestle RPD this past weekend, so I did notice that.
He's fantastic. I've known Sonna for a long time. I was there, I think, for his first ever training session. He's come along a lot over the years. He's really, really good. I mean, Dan Evans as well. Dan Evans, he used to be called Mr. Massive, and you see him and you see why.
Nate shared his war stories with Dan Evans on Friday's show, so we heard quite a bit about Dan Evans.
He's in incredible shape. Synergy, they're in great shape as well. But
Synergy we've had on. Synergy, in fact, I'll make you chuckle. I have a Synergy story. So what I actually did to promote when they came on the radio about maybe 10 months ago now, this was still in COVID. I have a Steiner Brothers WCW wrestling card. I know that they're huge Steiner Brothers fans. I actually pulled the card out in the promo to announce the time they were coming on. So they really appreciated that. So I'm a big Synergy fan. So Synergy's all over the place.
They are. Well, they were in ICW recently.
That's why we didn't see them on the Fight Man for Christmas. That's what.
No, that's true. That's true. So they're well deserved. Well deserved. I mean, they are fantastic, and they're great lads as well. They really are.
And they're in I mean, the asset Stephen Cross is in phenomenal shape, but those guys are on a whole nother level. I mean, we're talking levels in the world. I mean, that's why you see them in strongman competitions, especially Troy Ryan. I mean, it's just incredible what they bring to the table. And
they should go to. I mean, if there's any sort of companies in Japan who hear this, you need to book Synergy. Definitely, they'd be monsters over there. Can you imagine them in Pro Wrestling Noah or in DDT or in New Japan? It'd be incredible. 0-1. They'd be great over there.
Well,
they're tailor-made. They're tailor-made for Japan.
There's precedent for it. We know Chris Ridgway has made quite a career in Japan, and so it could happen. I mean, listen, it wouldn't surprise me. I do think that they've got the look, they've got the feel about them that, I really think that they're going to break out. I would say of anybody that you have on the roster right now, they're the ones I would really keep an eye on in terms of just breaking out because I just think that they're, I think Cutter and Getsky for sure. I definitely think Cutter and Getsky have the look, certainly Cutter at least, but I certainly think that Synergy may already have it. Tonga's another one. You talk about females on the female side. I definitely want to acknowledge Tonga because I've been hearing about Tonga for about a year. I've been told by different wrestlers. They've told me, I'm not going to name names, watch Tonga. And Tonga is blowing up right now. So Tonga's the one that I would probably say also I would add to the list here in the LWF.
Oh, we're lucky to have these people. We really are. We're lucky to have people like Tonga and Synergy and stuff like that. Well, Synergy.
And Big Guns Joe. You guys have had Big Guns Joe also.
Big Guns Joe. Oh, I love Big Guns Joe. I love him. I was around when he first debuted for Grand Pro Wrestling in Hindley.
And we know him from KOW. He's been in the KOW roster a few different times.
Well, he wrestles everywhere. He's been in Progress as well. He's great. Joe is great. Really nice guy as well. Really nice guy. Really humble. Yeah. And he's just so talented. And I love. And I just. Those are the people you want to succeed. Those are the people who you want to. You see someone like Joe and doing so well for himself, and it makes you feel like it makes you feel good that justice is being done. That because Synergy are great lads. Tonga's fantastic. It's just you see these people succeeding and doing so well, and it's just like it makes you feel good because they deserve it. They've worked they've earned it. They've worked so hard. They've put the effort in. They're still improving. They've not even reached their ceiling, and that's what's terrifying.
That's the thing. Glad you brought that up because these wrestlers, they're going to only grow. They haven't even hit their prime yet. They haven't even hit their peak. Big Guns Joe is another one. He's everywhere. I mean, and he's somebody that we've supposed to have had on in the past. We've spoken to Joe, and just because Joe's so busy, he's literally wrestling like every weekend. He was one of the only handful of wrestlers that even during the Backstreet Boys reunion tour, as you brought up, that was still wrestling. He was everywhere. Big Guns Joe actually kept going. He thrived. So God bless Big Guns Joe for everything that he's doing. But before I get closing thoughts from you, I did want to mention his name and what he's meant because you've obviously talked about him in a number of different ways. But I formally want to ask you just on how much Steve Bibby means to you and the LWF.
Oh, well, Steve Bibby's great. Like I'm the guy who will if he's got an issue or something, he'll come to me and I'll try and help him out of it and stuff like that. He's my commentary brother. And it's thanks. He's giving us all this opportunity. He's running these shows. He's putting he put himself. Financially, he's gone through a lot to keep the LWF going, and he's giving people the chance to live their dreams. Giving people the chance to, develop and grow. And, again, I just think, I've, as someone who's just as a commentator, I've enjoyed watching these people in the LWF, these wrestlers grow more than I ever enjoyed anything I personally did in wrestling. And Steve's the reason, Steve's putting his hand in his pocket and he's paying for it and he's making sure we can do it. And he's giving the fans a great product and he's giving the wrestlers a chance to wrestle. He's giving me a chance to commentate. It's I've got he's actually a very good cook as well. If you didn't
seen the Facebook. In fact, I've been tagged in a few of his Facebook videos, so I have seen.
Yeah, he prepared Christmas dinner. He did his Christmas dinner preparations on Christmas Eve, and I was actually isolating because I bought a ticket for the Backstreet Boys reunion tour. Oh, so I had to.
Congratulations! I should say.
Yeah, I wanted it that way, but no. So they.
It's tearing up my heart, isn't it? It's a quote insane.
Yeah, it absolutely is. So so I watched that and it cheered me up. I watched about 6 hours of Steve Bibby cooking a turkey and a duck, and it was great. So yeah, he's fantastic. He's fantastic. I laughed earlier. He saw me get a message. He sent me a picture for what the Lancashire Riot poster is going to look like, and it's a belter. It's great. So they can all look forward to that on social media and such. But it's just brilliant. He's great. He's a great guy to work for. He really is. He really cares, and he really wants to make sure that everyone's got a fair shake of the stick and a chance. And he does a lot on show days. He's got a lot to do. He's got to run the show. He's got to do commentary. He's got to do authority figure stuff and all that, everything else. He's like I say, I'm getting to.
Oh, I can understand.
My own personal dream.
I go live. I have to format the shows. I have to book the shows. So from strategically the radio side of it, I could certainly sympathize with Mr. Bibby in some of his administrative roles and then his on-camera roles.
Oh, yeah. So I try to help him as best I can as well. If I can help him out, I will. I try and help out with things. Like I say, when it comes to filming promos, that's basically my baby, really. They kind of just let me loose to just do it as well. That's a good thing about Steve. He kind of doesn't really. I'll say to Steve, right, I'm going to film about 10 promos for you. And he goes, all right, cool. And he just lets me go and do it. And like we collaborate with I collaborate with the wrestler and sort of see sometimes like I will just, if a wrestler's unsure, I will help give them the promo. Other times I'll give them like a bullet point and they'll just go. Like Nick Cutter's, believe it or not, Nick Cutter's one who's like, for a while he was first take Nick. I'd just say, right, you need to do this and this, and he just go and do it. It's Melanie Price is great. She's so good. She's such a good promo. She's so good. That's the way she gets that character across and everything.
Well, I'm gonna selfishly put over Cross and Reese because I can tell you Cross has improved big time in speaking skills from when he's been with us. And
I've barely done any promo stuff with him, actually. That's the thing about...
But that's why I'm saying that when he does the promos, I'm going to assure you... Well, actually, to take it back, we actually sort of did a promo with him on the radio that I believe Steve Bibby actually used to promote him joining the Wrecking Crew. So actually, we sort of did do a promo with him because we actually had something that Steve Bibby used in order to promote his joining the Wrecking Crew against Shining Wizard. So I will actually have to say, in that sense, he sort of did do a promo with us. And what we sort of do sometimes with Reese and Cross is I'll work in, hey, what are you upcoming? Let's talk about it. And that way, it sort of is a promo. So we give them that, like, you'll see the 2-minute clips on my Instagram page at the Sports Report 2021. Well, you'll see a lot of that, whether it's with Cross and Reese, certainly, when we've had Getsky on, or Reynaldo, or the scenario Nathan Gunn, or Nick Cutter, or Gorgon, or certainly Quinn. So, that's something that we've actually worked upon, because we recognize the fact that we want to promote you guys and make sure everybody follows you. But before I get closing thoughts here, and it's obviously been a tremendous honor, I'm looking forward to having you here many, many more times. And Reynaldo actually said last week on the air, when I come to the UK, he is hoping that I can be on commentary with you guys for an LWF event.
Oh, that'd be so good.
I'm going to say my sign of the cross and prayers and hope that I get down there within the next year or so and make that happen. So we'll put that on the air. But I want to ask you 2 things. First, what is 1 or 2 moments that stood out most in your time with the LWF, certainly on the commentary booth? And the other thing, for your entire career, give me 1 or 2 things that stand out most, maybe as a wrestler, a referee, or anything else.
Okay, so as far as my own career, probably the one thing is when I was with Dan in Infinite Promotions, my character it was very similar to, if you remember ECW, I was very similar to Bill Alfonso's initial character.
Of course.
Where I was Mike Lovejoy and I wanted to enforce all the rules and no one liked it. And we came afoul of a wrestler called Pitbull. And for months he was chasing us and he couldn't get me. And then finally he got his hands on me and he destroyed me in the ring. And it was a lot of people in Liverpool watching it. And me and Dan for a while joked, we drew the house. But like I think genuinely people did come and pay for a ticket to see me get killed. And I was very proud about that. Another one, obviously I've refereed some great matches. I've refereed some just fantastic work with people like, I've worked with people like Joey Hayes. I've worked with people like Sonny Durson, Pete Dunne. I've refereed matches with the American Wolves involved and stuff like that. I've been very, very lucky. Danny Birch / Martin Stone, I've been refereed his matches. I've lost count of all the matches I've refereed, but so many good ones. As far as the LWF, I think Mosh Pit Mayhem will always be a highlight for me because I was so excited for it and it exceeded any expectation I ever could have had. I think everyone involved in it did such a fantastic job. I think, Eitenstein doing that incredible balcony dive. Helena Razor really holding her own against 4 guys. Keenan Krishna just lying in the ring once it was over for what seemed like hours, just not moving. And we're all trying to clear up around him because he's still out cold in the ring. Brilliant stuff. Really good. And I guess another highlight for me would be, let me think. I'm trying to think what to go for. That, I think when Steve Bibby at Viva Vengeance announced it was going to be Reynaldo and Nick Cutter in a street fight and that pull apart brawl and the fans were just going nuts. That gives you chills. That's what you're doing it for. That's what you want. And I'm hoping now, I can't wait for the Lancashire Riot to see the 15 women fighting for the women's title. They're going to do such a good job. It's going to be so good. Can't wait. I can't wait to see who Reynaldo's next challenge is going to be. We've got Slamaganza coming up. I can't wait to see who he faces. We've got this stuff with Nate Reese and Bob Costin. We've got the stuff with the tag team titles. It's a really exciting time. I can't wait.
Oh, absolutely. And listen, the Reynaldo Cutter match, I mean, what a crowning achievement, I think, to where we are with the LWF. Reynaldo's win. We talked about it. We talked about the call. We talked about what it meant. So I really think we're seeing the LWF continue to build upon what you and certainly Steve Bibby have done here to put this company in the position that it's in, where we have such a great roster. We have so many different wrestlers. We're going to have our first ever women's champion. We just had our first ever tag team champions. So, I mean, this company is really moving. It's really going forward. And it's really one of the premier companies you want to talk about. And I'm honored each and every week to talk the LWF with the asset Stephen Cross, with Wildfire Nate Reese, Reynaldo, our world champion, one of the greatest comeback stories, I think, in wrestling history over the past decade. We've had him on twice. He's coming back. Davey Getsky's been on here a couple of times. Nathan Gunn has been on here a couple of times. Isaiah Quinn has been a friend of ours for about a year. We've had him on many times. We've spoken about the LWF with him. So we are very honored to continue to talk about all the great things that the LWF has to offer, including here our commentator, who is our heart and soul of LWF, who is our man. Listen, he is our Jesse Ventura. He is our Taz on the booth. He is our Jerry the King Lawler. And that is, of course, the very good, the very esteemed Mikey Dangerously, otherwise known as Michael Fitzgerald. And
for those people don't know where that's coming from. We had they made me dress up in fancy dress in October for October Overload, and I decided to be Mikey Dangerously.
Yeah, I did want to bring that up because I think Reynaldo appreciated that when I said to him I was going to bring that up, and Reese kind of gave a belly laugh. So I was certainly happy that at least I knew a few of my colleagues here were very happy to bring that up. But obviously, we're very happy to have you, and I can't wait to have you back anytime you want to come on, because I got a feeling that we could go on for hours and hours. And just like Reynaldo, we didn't know what to expect, but we know that we're going to come on here, I'm sure, anytime you want before our upcoming event. I'd love to have you on actually before the Lancashire Riot, if you could, to spare a few minutes and continue to talk about the card and stuff like that, because I'd love to do that. So I want to give you the floor, though, first. I want you to plug all of your social media, Twitter, Instagram.
Oh, here we go.
Anything else you'd like to say to anybody watching and listening to this? And I can't thank you enough for giving us this opportunity. I can't thank you enough for allowing us to continue to talk the LWF. And the floor is yours, my friend. Anything you want to share and any social media, please plug in. The floor is yours.
So you want to follow me? If you want to follow me on Twitter, I'm at Mike Lovejoy Fitz. If you want to follow me on Instagram, I am that Mike Fitz 1878, I believe. And that's it for my social media presence, really. That's about it. I want to thank Sportzwire for having me on. I thank the Reverend himself for having me on. And all I want to say is you're my favorite pizza place.
Well, we are from New York, and obviously pizza is our middle name. In fact, my middle name's Jay, but if you said pizza, I mean, there is certainly a lot of.
I love pizza. My mom regrets. I have been to New York. We didn't properly go and get any pizza anywhere. That was my one regret. I didn't get a dog from one of the vendors either. I really wanted to get get a hot dog somewhere, but I was with people.
I would recommend, since you kind of opened it up, to never get a hot dog from a hot dog vendor in New York, because I'm going to give you a story which you'll probably appreciate me telling you this. When I was in college, right before my finals, before I went to stop on the train to go home, I went to go buy food. I had Nate. I was in school all day. I had finals, yada, 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 preparing for finals. And I bought a knish, 2 hot dogs, and a pretzel. I will tell you that I didn't eat for like 3 days afterwards because I had such a stomach ache. So I tell people, anytime you're in New York, never to go to a hot dog vendor, because they really are dirty water dogs. So pizza, I'll definitely recommend. But anybody that's watching and listening to this that will come to New York, do not go to any hot dog vendor in Manhattan. There is actually one hot dog cart down the block from me that's run by my neighbor's cousin. He's very clean. But it's like kind of under the radar. But when it comes to actually going into Manhattan, do yourself a favor. Never get a hot dog there, because I can tell you that I could not eat for 2 or 3 days, and I had such a stomach ache, and I couldn't take off because it was finals. So I would never, ever, ever get a hot dog again from a hot dog cart in Manhattan. So that's all my advice. You can do whatever you want, but trust me, take that advice. Your stomach will be very happy if you take that advice. That's all I'll say. That's all I'll certainly say. But obviously, it is a tremendous honor to have had you. Congratulations on all of your success with the LWF. I'm looking forward to speaking with you soon. I'm looking forward to getting down to Clory and calling some LWF with you and obviously Steve in the future. And thank you for all you do. And I can't wait to bring you on here before next month's event. And all the best, and keep up the great work.
Thank you. We'll see you on the 12th of February.
As we're here on the Sports Report, the #1 global sports show with our #1 commentator, that is the heart and soul of the LWF, that is Michael Fitzgerald. As I am the host of the Sports Report and the station manager here of Sportswire Radio, the Reverend Tom Bryce, and stay tuned here for more hard-hitting analysis on Sportswire Radio. We'll have some more wrestling talk at some point. Well, I have to reset the dial, so you have to stay tuned for a little while for that. So if you're in UK, have a great night. We'll be back here also live tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 1 a.m. UK time. We'll be talking about the week that was in the NFL. We'll be getting ready for the playoffs, and we'll be talking about some coaches that had got the pink slip here this past Monday. So we'll have a lot to do. That will be live once again tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 1 a.m. UK time. But for now, we were just with the heart and soul of the LWF, Michael Fitzgerald, talking all things related to his career in wrestling and, of course, the LWF. I am the host of the Sports Report and the station manager here of Sportswire Radio, the Reverend Tom Bryce. Have a good night, everyone.